Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice, and it's by user Deleted. My lecturer hired me as a naked maid and is uncomfortable now, but I need him to get over it. I'm F, in my early 20s, and he is in at least mid-30s. I work for a cleaning service that offers nude or lingerie-clad maid service. There is no sex or touching, and if boundaries get crossed, then the client is struck from the client list. The client can ask for a type, e.g. hair color, race, weight, age, gender, but they cannot pick a specific maid. Their maid is assigned by the company. Both client and maid have the option of using a fake name, and pictures of either party are not provided. Any institutions the clients and maids are linked to, e.g. school or work, are also noted, so something exactly like this doesn't happen. All of this is done for confidentiality. Clients can request after the first session that the same maid comes back, but that's it. I'm explaining this to show that it is impossible for him to have requested me or known it was me beforehand. I got a message from the company saying a nearby and anonymous client had requested a lingerie-clad maid and I was his type. I went in jeans and a t-shirt with the lingerie underneath, so he didn't see anything. Knocked on the door and my lecturer opened it. I realized what had happened and said that the agency typically filters these things out. Clearly, there was an error and I can stay and be professional or I can get him another maid. But whichever he chooses, we should both just forget this. He asked for another maid, so I called the office, explained, and left. The office says due to computer or human error, no one clocked that we are linked with the same school. I had to go to school a few days ago along with some classmates and we ran into him. He was awkward, uncomfortable, wouldn't look me in the eye and refused to even directly address me. We ran into him again later that day and it was the same, if not worse that time. We also had some classes at the end of last academic year, after the mix-up where I ended up at his place, and I was similarly ignored, though I attributed this at the time to the online format of the classes. This would just be one of those things, except I have classes with him all next year, as well as private meetings with him to discuss my studies. These have to be done with him, are compulsory and can affect my grade. While I know that I can act professionally, I am concerned that he cannot, as it has been several months and he is still not past it. I am putting a lot of time and money into this, and if this is indicative of how he will act for the remainder of it, I feel I will not get what I paid for and that my grade will suffer. I do not know how best to progress. I cannot afford to let my grade come to harm, but talking to him might make things even worse. Any advice? Well, my guess is that this is very awkward for the both of you, but OP, you clearly are behaving professional about this. My guess is that he must be very embarrassed about the whole thing, or he thinks that you're going to go around telling people, which of course would be unprofessional. Is there any way you can contact him to reassure him that his privacy is absolutely safe in your hands and that because this is a job for you, you're not going to go around discussing your clients or anything like that? I definitely understand your worry because if he doesn't get over it, it can definitely affect your future, and that's not right. This is a type of thing that has to be compartmentalized. Nobody's judging anybody here. If he likes somebody to clean his house wearing lingerie, well, that's his thing, and if there's a service for it, then that's just fine. So what do you guys think? How would you try to solve this situation if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see the advice that OP got. Reddit Rabbit says, clearly a lot of people giving you advice here don't work in academics. I do. Please, don't put anything in writing unless you actually want to get him fired. He is not going to give you a bad class participation grade if he is the one preventing you from participating by ignoring you. As for meetings with him, just meet for your degree the way you would if this had never happened. If you treat this brusquely and professionally, he will eventually too. If you must address it at the end of your meeting, while you're leaving, say, I would really appreciate it if you would keep what I do for a living to yourself. Obviously, I am giving you the same professional courtesy. I would love it if we could pretend that incident never happened. Don't put anything in writing, and for the love of God, do not show up at his house again, facepalm, even to leave a note in his mailbox. That's how you progress into stalking. Don't do anything crazy to make him notice you in class. Offer to participate the way you always do. Do your meetings with him as if this never happened. Comprehensive Band 586 says, as a college professor, I can assure you that it is extremely unlikely that he will lower your grade because of what happened. The thing is that he knows that if he gives you a grade you didn't actually earn, you could then turn around and say that it's because of what happened. He doesn't want anyone to know what happened. There is supposed to be a line between the faculty and the students. And he's mortified that the line is blurred now. He's also embarrassed because now you know what he's into. You think that he's punishing you, but what he's really doing is attempting to protect himself because he's probably terrified that you're going to tell people about what happened. Believe me, he wants to forget the whole thing. Just go into the meetings and act like any other student would act. As a teacher, it's his job to be professional and ethical. He's not going to screw that up by giving you bad grades that you didn't earn. He's afraid that if the truth got out, it could destroy his career. And as someone who has spent many years in academia, I can tell you right now that it could. Just do the work, and instead of focusing so much on how he interacts with you, focus on just your own performance as a student. Sad Celery Salt says, I definitely would not bring this up to anyone unless you absolutely have to, or if he's done something you think is wrong. It sounds like you know he did nothing wrong. He's obviously very scared you will say something and that he could lose his job. I would definitely try to talk to him first, if you're comfortable with that, just to reassure him that he's okay. That dude is having a hard time, and not in the good way. And OP responds, I have no intention of bringing this up to anyone outside of the people I already talked to at my agency, and I don't believe he has done anything wrong. He hired a maid. That's not illegal, and according to the company, he's a good customer, having used the service and never crossed a line. I'm comfortable with the concept of talking to him, but I'm unsure how to do it in an appropriate manner, both in terms of what to say and the setting. Alright, well, I think the community gave OP some pretty good advice. So before we move on with the update, I'd like to read a bit more context that I got from OP's responses to other comments. The primary purpose of my job, as well as my job title, and what I tell people I do, is that I'm a cleaner, because that is my job. The same way a waitress at Hooters or another restaurant is a waitress, not a sex worker, or the cast of Magic Mike Live are actors and not sex workers. There is a clear distinction because each of these jobs has a primary purpose: cleaning, waitressing, and acting. If I were to define myself as a sex worker, I would be saying that sex work is the primary purpose of my job, which would be against the rules of my school and could get me expelled, when the actual primary purpose is cleaning, which is not against any rule, so I cannot be expelled for it. But if someone were to report me, then the uni could hypothetically make things harder for me to stay without actually formally punishing me. I don't know if the lecturer's code of conduct has anything like that. Unfortunately, there's no other lecturer to switch to. It's a small university and an even smaller faculty, so he is the only person I can have these meetings with, and I have to take this course as it is compulsory if I want to graduate. And the course also comes with private meetings separate to the other batch of meetings. I didn't do much follow-up, but the standard procedure is an apology, a reassurance, and a discount, and I've been told that he has used the service since that day, so he likely received the apology package. I'll probably meet him during office hours. I just have to be very delicate with how I handle this. I can email him, but it has to be through his school email, so there's the risk that it might be seen by someone other than the two of us. I don't have his number, and I could ask someone at work for it, but that would completely undermine the client confidentiality aspect. I can also book a meeting with him during office hours, but to do that I have to go through the school website and book a meeting with him on the school system using my student ID, so there is no real way to do this without having a record on the school system of the meeting. I can't believe that the first time I know the client, it's someone who has a hand in my degree outcome. I'm not embarrassed, it's a living and I can be professional. It's him I'm worried about. Classes don't start up for a few weeks still, but I could corner him in office hours. The only worry there is that I would need to do it alone, and I don't know if being alone with him is a good idea right now. I also hope he doesn't think less of me, but in my experience, people often do. It isn't sex work, but it carries all of the stigmas of that, and people have judged and insulted me over this before now, which is why I have been keeping it to myself. I hope this is just embarrassment on his part, but I still need him to get over it for the sake of my grade. So now you know everything that complicates OP and everything that's going through her mind. So let's move on with the update to see how this story finishes. He reported me. I booked a meeting with him during office hours so I could clear the air, as was suggested in my last post, and then followed it up with an email that simply said that as school is starting up again and its final year, I'd like a chance to meet with him to talk about my dissertation and make sure he approved of the topic before I launched into it. Something that is completely standard and everyone else is doing, but was somehow enough to panic him. The maid service I work for also offers completely clothed maids. So from what I can gather, he's gone to the uni saying he paid for a fully clothed maid and only went through this service because of their extensive vetting. But when I showed up, I offered to do it naked in exchange for extra help on my dissertation, and he said no. Obviously, this is BS, and I got the recording of the phone call I had with work and gave it to the uni, which was enough to stop the investigation. But I couldn't get his payment records to prove he paid for lingerie due to the anonymous payment system. And any more than that would require a legal case, which I can't afford. And even if I did manage to stay here, I would still have to be in his classes as they are mandatory. But at the same time, my uni has basically said that they can't put me in his classes after this. He must have reported me the second I sent in my meeting request because I got the email from the person dealing with this literally less than a week later. I have no clue what the F he's thinking. I'm assuming he thought I would report him and decided to get ahead of it, but even that makes no sense as all I did was request a meeting. Whatever his logic, I am dropping out. I am 1 year off completing my degree, so I've submitted some inquiries about transferring to nearby universities. But because this has happened right at the start of a new school year, it's going to be 10 times harder than it would be if this happened over summer or last year. The only upsides are that I've not actually been expelled or suspended, so I won't need to explain this to anyone. The uni seems fine to just let me go quietly, and another lecturer is writing me a reference. The agency has also said they will blacklist him, and they share this info with other services, so hopefully he won't be able to do this to anyone else. Just jeez. He's such a prick. I can't be here anymore, partly because of how they treated me in handling this, but also just because his classes are mandatory. I can't complete my degree without taking his classes, not even online. But they can't put me in his classes as he's basically accused me of sexual harassment. Bit of a catch-22. I wouldn't be allowed to ask him questions, have meetings with him, or request feedback on my work. And as I would be paying full tuition to only be able to do 2/3 of all of my courses, at that point I would rather go elsewhere than coordinate this with uni. I just hope another uni lets me transfer, but I don't have much time as most school terms are already underway. I could take a year off and then try to start at another uni next year, but the odds of me being able to start at a final year level after a year off are not great. The lecturer who's giving me a reference seems to like me. She said she was sorry to see me go. I will keep an ear out in case he starts off, but I'm not even convinced that some people believe him. But I don't think I have enough support to fight it. I spoke to a lawyer and they told me that the best route was to just get my reference and get out. The uni will protect him and drag me through the mud with little to no hesitation, and I'm not equipped to go through a legal case right now. Plus, I'm hardly the most sympathetic of victims. Given my job, it would be easy for them to make me look, well, easy. That, with my problems getting evidence and my overall grades, could leave me in a worse state after the case than I was before it. I would honestly call him out, but as I'm waiting on that reference and a possible transfer, I need the uni to help me out for a little longer. Anyway, he's a little bitch. I'm at least a decade younger than him and I was more of an adult than him here. Wow, what a tiny little man that is. He messed up Opie's future because he's embarrassed of himself. He sucks big time. Opie, I truly hope that the situation this coward has put you in doesn't set you back in your studies or your life for that matter. All the best in the future, Opie, and thank you for sharing. And now we move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Brother P. You'll be calling your lawyer? Just what I want to hear. As a former school board privacy officer, I dealt with many freedom of information requests from the public that dealt with anything from salaries of senior employees to value of contracts awarded to emails about routine business. Occasionally, someone would submit a very complex request that would require a lot of time to complete. So it was with one parent who wanted thousands of emails, committee meeting minutes, reports, and the personal notes of a dozen different school board employees. The reason? She had requested that her children's bus stop move from the entrance to the cul-de-sac she lived on to right in front of her house. While the difference was only about 100 meters, 109 yards, the request was denied because the circle at the end of the cul-de-sac was too small for the bus to turn around. After working on the request for more than a month, she grew impatient and demanded to know what was taking so long. I tried to explain I was a one-man operation, but she started making accusations that I was part of a conspiracy against her. She demanded that I produce all the records immediately or I will contact my lawyer. Now, I'm smart enough to know that anyone who says, I will contact my lawyer, doesn't have one, especially not one who specializes in freedom of information requests. But playing along, I said, oh, we don't want it to come to that, I'll finish this today, and hung up. So I did. The legislation requires that we charge $7.50 for 15 minutes of search time for records, plus $7.50 for 15 minutes of preparation time, redacting personal information, eliminating non-responsive information, etc., plus other incidental costs, copying, printing, etc. Because I had to have informations and communication technologies help with the emails and computer records, the charges added up rapidly. I called her back the next day and told her the first batch of records would be ready by the end of the week. Then I asked how she'd like to pay the costs. The costs? She said. What costs? How much? $4,870, I said. As I'm sure your lawyer will explain, 50% is payable up front before we proceed any further with the request. Then we can start on the next batch. Dead quiet on the other end of the phone. You haven't heard the end of this? I'm calling the local news, she shouted and hung up. It is now 3 years later, still waiting. Oh, Karen, that's what you get for being a Karen. Thanks for sharing, OP, this was awesome. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.